Today's episode is brought to you by Conceiving with Fertility Awareness, a free online course designed to help you utilize fertility awareness strategies to optimize your chances of conceiving naturally. From timing sex accurately every time to identifying potential fertility issues through charting, this course has you covered. Head over to fertilityfriday.com/TTC for access. TTC as in trying to conceive. Again, that's fertilityfriday.com/TTC. This episode is brought to you by the Fertility Awareness Mastery Charting Workbook, the first beautifully designed, fully customizable paper charting workbook designed with you in mind. With 3 years worth of charting pages, the Fertility Awareness Mastery Charting Workbook has you covered. If you've been looking for a solid alternative to charting apps, you'll love this charting workbook. The Fertility Awareness Mastery Charting Workbook is available in both Fahrenheit and Celsius editions, and it's available in spiral-bound, paperback, and ebook versions. Head over to fertilityfriday.com/workbook to order your copy today. That's fertilityfriday.com/workbook. This is the Fertility Friday podcast, episode number 300. Welcome to the Fertility Friday podcast, your source for information about the fertility awareness method and all things fertility. I'm your host, Lisa Hendrickson-Jack. I'm the author of The Fifth Vital Sign and the Fertility Awareness Mastery Charting Journal. I'm a certified fertility awareness educator and holistic reproductive health practitioner with nearly 20 years of experience teaching women to connect to their fifth vital sign through menstrual cycle charting, balancing hormonal health, and optimizing the menstrual cycle without hormones. I'm outspoken about hormonal birth control and its impact on fertility and overall health because you have the right to know how your body works and how artificial hormones disrupt that natural process. I host live coaching programs to help you achieve optimal fertility and health because it's important to have healthy menstrual cycles regardless of whether or not you want to have babies. I'm also a wife and mother of 2 beautiful boys. I know, I'm a busy girl, but I managed to fit it all in. This podcast is designed to empower you to take full control of your cycles, your fertility, and your overall health. And I'm so excited that you're here with us today. I'm really excited to share today's episode with you. Today is the 300th episode of the Fertility Friday podcast. Hooray! I'm really excited that we hit this incredible milestone. The podcast is just over 5 years old. We celebrated the 5-year anniversary in December of 2019. And so it's really incredible and exciting that we have officially hit 300. So I was thinking about what I should talk about and what I should do in the 300th episode. And I thought that I would focus on conception and conceiving with fertility awareness, how fertility awareness can help optimize your chances of conceiving. This is something that we've talked about quite a bit on the podcast, but I think that it's important to revisit it and to keep talking about it and keep opening up that conversation. As I'm recording this, I actually just recently started my 10-week program. So I've been talking about the 10-week program quite a bit on the podcast. And so we've had our first few sessions together by this point. And at the very beginning of the 10-week class, I always take some time for everybody to introduce themselves and get to know each other. And what I find to be really important, just being that I've been doing this work for so long, I've been in this field and working with women and teaching fertility awareness for nearly 20 years now. And it's really easy to lose sight of why it's so important. So for those of you who've been listening to the podcast for a long time, you've likely heard me say a lot of the same things and repeat some of those same details and share a lot of these important pieces of information in different ways multiple times. But the thing is that on a pretty regular basis, when I'm working with clients, I'm always connecting with women who are just discovering fertility awareness. And no matter how many episodes that I've released, no matter how long I've been talking about this, no matter how many years in the field, how many hundreds of women, thousands of charts, this information is new for the majority of women, on planet Earth. And I'm always reminded of that when I work with new clients, when I'm doing a new group program, and it really just energizes me and refreshes me and reminds me of how important this information is, how much this information can truly change your outlook on life and even just your experience. And if you're new to the podcast, welcome. I would highly encourage you to listen to the Pill Reality series episodes. So fertilityfriday.com/pill reality. I would highly encourage you to listen to the FAM reality series. So Fertility Awareness Method reality, where I do my on-air client sessions. So fertilityfriday.com/reality. And the reason why I would recommend for you to listen to those episodes if you haven't is because it's really important to hear the stories of real women, hear what real women are experiencing and going through. And the number of times that I've heard someone say, I was listening to these episodes and I heard myself in that story. I thought I was going crazy. Everyone around me takes hormonal birth control and doesn't have a problem, but I was having a problem. And it was your podcast that really helped me to recognize it's not just me. And there's other women who are experiencing the same thing. I didn't feel so alone. I mean, it's so important for us to just continue to make space to have these conversations, to share this information. And so with that said, I wanted to take the opportunity in this 300th podcast episode to talk about fertility awareness and how it applies to conception specifically, and going beyond timing, but obviously timing is important when it comes to conception. So we'll talk about the top 4 ways that fertility awareness can help when you're trying to conceive or when you're planning ahead for conception at some point in the future. Now, if this is a topic, if this is the reason that you clicked on this today, if you are either actively trying to conceive or planning to conceive in the future, I've created a free online course, and I have really gone into these topics in a lot more depth. So make sure to head over to fertilityfriday.com/TTC. That's TTC, like trying to conceive, so TTC. But make sure to head over to fertilityfriday.com/TTC to download this free online course all about optimizing your chances of conceiving with fertility awareness. So with that said, let's jump into today's episode. So I wanted to jump right in and talk about the top 4 reasons why fertility awareness can help when you're ready to conceive. So whether you're actively conceiving or whether you're planning to conceive at some point in the future, fertility awareness is a really useful tool to have in your toolbox at that stage. And there's so many myths in our culture that prevent us from really gaining that accurate and complete information just about the basic way that our body works, our menstrual cycle works, and our fertility. And for that reason, it's even more important for us to educate ourselves and just learn, again, this most basic information about our menstrual cycle and how it can apply when we're ready to have a baby. I think that some of the biggest myths in our culture make it difficult for us. So one of the biggest myths is just that we're fertile every day and pregnancy is a given. So as youngsters, many of us, if not most of us, if not all of us, are taught that as a woman, you can get pregnant on any single day of your menstrual cycle. I was taught that, and most of the women that I've ever encountered in my entire life have been taught that. Not every single woman. There's a small percentage of women who get good, accurate information. Maybe their mother or aunt or sister or someone in their lives did know about fertility awareness and actually taught them the accurate information. But the majority of us weren't taught that way. And so that myth, the myth that we're fertile every day and that we're basically guaranteed to get pregnant if we ever have sex with another human being, those myths make it really challenging, because then when we flip that over, when we're ready to start, having babies, then it just gives us the impression that pregnancy can happen on any day. So it makes sense then that you should just get pregnant like the first time you ever have unprotected sex. And so I think that it's really important to balance and kind of eradicate those myths and really focus on, what does the science have to say? What's really going on in the menstrual cycle? One of the ways to look at it when we take a look at the research is by looking at what is the chance of pregnancy per cycle, even in the healthiest couple. So when you take a look at the research, even the healthiest couple has about a 30% chance of conception per cycle. So even if you have ideal situation, ideal scenario, on average, it's still taking 3 cycles to conceive. And that's really important to consider, because it's not what we're taught about fertility. We're so actively engaged in preventing pregnancy at all costs that we're not really thinking about what it would take to get pregnant. And it is a bit of a mind shift, and it is a bit of a different type of a conversation. And so when you're avoiding pregnancy, the mindset is that it's absolutely going to happen. Pregnancy is automatic. Oh my goodness, if my partner looks at me, I'm going to be pregnant. And we are taught that pregnancy can happen on any day. And we spend a lot of our adult lives, many of us, actively avoiding pregnancy, and not just actively avoiding, but like absolutely terrified, like living in a constant state of terror because we're not taught enough about it till we can understand it. We're just taught such a small amount, and it's not even completely accurate what we're taught, that it just leaves us in a state of fear. And I'm sure every single human isn't in a state of fear, but I know I was, and a lot of the women I speak to were as well, like just always afraid, just constantly afraid. And I speak to women who are now in their 30s and mid 30s and, even close to their 40s, who are still just as terrified as they were when they were 18 years old. And often I find that to be interesting because we're not taught enough about our fertility and how it changes with age to even shift that mindset mentality. You can still prevent pregnancy. It is possible to prevent pregnancy without hormones. I think that is something, like, you can prevent pregnancy with hormones and you can prevent pregnancy without hormones. One is not necessarily more effective than the other. And that can be a hard thing to hear, and it can go against everything you've ever heard. But there are enough women who successfully use fertility awareness and don't have accidents, who don't get pregnant when they don't want to. When you learn the method, when you work it, when you really figure out the rules, figure out where you're at, have those conversations with your partner, it is possible to successfully avoid pregnancy without hormones. And so that's something that's really important just to be said out loud, and really important to process that. Also, the conversation about fertility changes as we get older. So the chance and the ease at which we can conceive, it may be different at 35 than it is at 20. And these are real conversations that we need to be having. So the healthiest couple alive, what the research tells us is that there's about a 30% chance per cycle of conceiving. So on average, taking about 3 cycles, even in the best case scenario. Generally, the average is about 25%. So your average couple, when you take a look at the research, takes about 4 cycles to conceive. Now, when you throw hormonal birth control into the mix, if you are not giving yourself a period of transition, so your body goes through a temporary period of subfertility post hormonal birth control. And so the amount of time, the duration, it does vary a bit based on the type of birth control. So the birth control pill, the combined pill where there's a combination of synthetic estrogens and progestins, on average, it takes about 8 months post-pill for conception to occur. So I'm saying months now, not cycles, because the studies aren't looking at the cycles per cycle chance. They're looking at how long it's actually taking when you come off of that particular birth control method. But what we're looking at, though, is on average, it takes about twice as long for your average couple to conceive post-pill. If you've taken the shot, that time doubles to about 16 months on average that it takes to conceive post-shot. And then the different methods of hormonal birth controls kind of fall in the middle. And so it's really helpful to have that level of understanding. And this really leads us into our discussion of how fertility awareness can help you when you are ready to conceive. I just wanted to jump into today's episode with a quick message from the show sponsor, Conceiving with Fertility Awareness. This is my free online course designed to help you utilize fertility awareness strategies to optimize your chances of conceiving naturally. From timing sex accurately every single time to identifying potential fertility issues through charting, this course has you covered. Head over to fertilityfriday.com/TTC for access. That's TTC as in trying to conceive. Again, that's fertilityfriday.com/TTC. Now let's jump back into today's episode. So, one of the most important things to mention with fertility awareness is that if you have the opportunity to come off of birth control and avoid pregnancy with other means, so barrier methods or a combination of barrier methods as well as fertility awareness, then it gives your menstrual cycle and your body a chance to adapt. So one of the kind of unsaid, unspoken benefits of fertility awareness is that it does preserve your fertility in the meantime. And if you've been on hormonal birth control for a long time, you're not ready to get pregnant, but you are starting to think about it within the next couple of years, it is worth having that conversation with yourself, especially if you're in your 30s, mid 30s. Okay, so you're not 18 anymore. you're probably a lot more responsible than you give yourself credit for. And you probably, if you're thinking about it, if you're kind of toying with the idea, you probably are capable of doing this. I find it to be so interesting how many women doubt their capability and capacity to avoid pregnancy without hormones, while they have these like really crazily difficult and complex careers. They do all this amazing work. A lot of the women that I work with, I mean, they have high powered jobs, or they do a lot of complicated, complex type of things, all the different types of work that we do. But yet still, we don't think we can manage to put a condom on before sex. It's very interesting. So I'm not trying to be judgy and weird. I'm trying to be your cheerleader. So if you're kind of thinking about conception at some point in the future, I want to just let you know that if you decide that you want to avoid pregnancy without hormones, it is possible and you are capable of doing it. There's plenty of things that you're already doing that are much harder than this. So you can do it. So if you opt for a non-hormonal method of birth control, that is one of the ways of preserving your fertility for when you are actually ready to start trying to have a baby, because you're not altering your body with hormones, and then when you're ready to conceive, your body doesn't have to go through this transition phase. You can just switch from using condoms or withdrawal or abstaining or avoiding unprotected sex on your fertile days to having sex on those fertile days. And at least that's one less hurdle that you have to go through when you're ready to conceive. So something to think about, definitely. Another way that fertility awareness helps with conception, with natural conception, is definitely timing. And so fertility awareness helps you to understand your body and understand how your body works. It helps you to understand that all of the days of your cycle are not fertile, that there's a small fertile window that's on average about a week or so long. And it helps you to identify those days so that you know exactly when to have sex when you're ready to conceive. It also helps you to get rid of a lot of the myths that that are just kind of tossed around, the myth of ovulation on day 14, the myth of 28-day cycles and all that kind of stuff. So it kind of gets rid of all that clutter and all that foolishness, I would say, so that you can just get to it and understand exactly when is the best time to time sex when you're ready. The third important way that fertility awareness can help you when you're ready to conceive is that by tracking your cycles, you can actually identify if there's a problem on your side. So when you're looking at your cycles, when you start to track your periods and your ovulation and your fertile window and your luteal phase, the second half of your cycle between ovulation and your period again, you can really start to see if there's a problem. And you can see if there's an issue with your cycles, if they're not regular, if your periods are problematic. And that can really be the thing that gives you that heads up or tells you the direction that you should be looking at if there is in fact an issue. If you're not ovulating at all, if you're ovulating really sporadically, these are things that you need to know. And so by tracking your cycle with fertility awareness, and especially if you're able to start tracking before you're actually tracking when you're still avoiding pregnancy, then it gives you the opportunity to have that window of insight into your cycles before you need to do something about it when you're ready to conceive. So finally, one of the things I think is really important, that one of the ways that fertility awareness can help you when you're trying to conceive is it can be a way to get your partner involved in this process in a couple of different ways. One, if you're charting your cycles, then you're having more conversations about your fertility, about your cycles, and it really brings your partner into the conversation. It takes away some of that mystery and makes things more tangible. A number of my clients have used paper charts and put them up in their bedroom, or they have their charts laying out so their partner can see what's happening with their cycles. And for a lot of couples, this is an avenue for conversation and for connection that just didn't exist before they were charting. But another important way that charting can get your partner involved is if you actually start charting and you start to see that your cycles are pretty typical, your cycles are pretty regular, you have, I always say there's no such thing as a perfect chart. So this is not a conversation about perfection, but when you start to understand the different parameters of the menstrual cycle, you see that your period falls into line, you see that you are ovulating, you see that you do have cervical fluid, you see that you do have a long enough luteal phase. And for a certain percentage of my clients, when they start charting, they often are afraid that there's something wrong, that their cycles are totally out of whack. But many of them find that their cycles are actually pretty okay, pretty normal, and they're pretty healthy. we can always tweak something. We can always improve our diet. We can always take a different supplement. But overall, maybe charting will show you that you're pretty healthy. So then what's the problem if you're having sex every single time during your fertile window and it's not conceiving? Fertility awareness charting can help you to draw the attention maybe to where it needs to be, if it needs to be on your partner. And so having those conversations, and it's not about laying blame, but it's really about starting to understand, well, this is how fertility works. I think with fertility awareness charting, you can no longer ignore male factor. It has to come front and center, because when you're hitting all those days, cycle after cycle, and it's not happening, there's only so much you can beat your head against the wall before you have to look in a different direction. And so I find that in my practice, charting really puts a spotlight on the male partner and really causes, you kind of have to, step up and do your part. And it depending on how you talk about it and how you look at it, it can really make the two of you partners in this process in a totally different way that you weren't before. That, in a nutshell, are the top 4 ways that fertility awareness can really help when you're ready to start trying. So to help with the process of natural conception. So I'll go over that again. I mean, the first way that fertility awareness can help with natural conception is by preserving your fertility. By charting and using a non-hormonal birth control method, you're not altering your body. And so when you're ready to switch it up and to start conceiving, there's no transition period that your body has to go through. Your body is just as it is, and you're just switching the days that you're having unprotected sex. The second way is timing. Of course, understanding your cycle. Fertility awareness helps you to understand your cycle in a way that you wouldn't really understand it if you weren't charting. And it really helps you to get rid of some of those myths that our culture commonly tells us, and helps you to identify which days of your cycle are the days to try. The days that you need to try in your cycle may be completely different than the days that a different woman has to try in her cycle, because all of our cycles are not exactly the same, and we don't all ovulate on the same day or at the same time. So it's really helpful to zone in on what is happening in my cycle and when is the best time for me to try. In addition to that, fertility awareness can help to identify cycle issues. So when you're tracking your cycle on a regular basis, you clearly start to see if there's a problem. And that can give you an important heads up, something that you may not have noticed, may not have been brought to your attention at all if you weren't charting. And finally, fertility awareness can get your partner involved in more ways than one. Especially if your cycles are overall healthy, it can help you to overcome that initial fear that there's something wrong with you, that your body is broken and all of that, and start to look at the real issue, which in some cases is male factor. And so it really helps to broaden the conversation. And I think with a little bit of support, I think it doesn't always happen so naturally, but fertility awareness can be the thing that helps you stop blaming yourself and start looking for the real problem, which in some cases is actually the male partner. And so with that said, I want to thank you for tuning in to today's 300th podcast episode. I was so excited to share today's episode with you. And if you know somebody who could benefit from the information we talked about, from the different ways that fertility awareness can help when you're trying to conceive, and just the way that it can help you to look at your cycle differently, to connect with your body, and also to preserve your fertility when you are not yet ready to start trying all the different things that we talked about, then make sure to share this episode. The link for today's episode is fertilityfriday.com/300. And of course, if you enjoyed today's episode and you're wanting to go into even more depth in terms of how fertility awareness can be utilized to help you conceive, how it can help you to get the timing right, how it can help you to identify potential health issues, make sure to download my free e-course, Conceiving with Fertility Awareness, and you'll find that over at fertilityfriday.com/TTC. TTC as in trying to conceive. So again, that's fertilityfriday.com/TTC. So I hope you have a wonderful day, weekend, week, whenever you're listening to this podcast episode. I appreciate you for being part of the Fertility Friday community. I am always reminded that even though if you've been an avid listener for a long time and this information isn't that new to you, I'm always reminded how important this information is for women who have never stumbled across it. And for the number of years that I've been talking about these topics, there are hundreds of thousands, millions of women out there that have never heard about the menstrual cycle in this way and how it's connected to overall health, how it can help with conception when you're ready, how it can be used for a natural form of birth control without hormones. There are so many women for whom they've never even heard of it before. And so I do appreciate you for being part of this community and for continuing to help me spread the word about these important topics. And so with that, I will let you go. Of course, as always, until next time, be well and happy charting.